VikesNow. I am Dustin Baker. We got free agency in about 7.5 weeks, and the theories about the Vikings are hot and heavy. We didn't really have any real news other than Kirk Cousins saying that he would enjoy playing for Bill Belichick given the opportunity. So it's a bunch of speculation, and we're going to talk about some of the absurd stuff today. I'm here with Tyler Ireland. We do not have Dakota Kep. She is doubtful, ruled out with knee soreness. She wanted to ensure that we got that out in the open. It's not IR. We think she'll be back on next Friday. But Tyler, without Dakota, we're going to make it. How are you, man?
Doing well, and I did hear from Coach NASA that she is probable to return next week. So just a little inside scoop for you there. But I am doing well, Dustin. How are you?
Not bad. So the Dolphins are out of the postseason, and that's the other team that you cover. And our worlds will intersect here in probably about 8, 9 minutes. But what I want to start with is the top of the list. There are four theories that one might consider absurd. I'm going to ask you, is the theory absurd or is it quasi realistic? The first one is regarding Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears. If the Bears, I think, if they're smart, they will draft Caleb Williams and not miss out on an opportunity. And then that would mean Fields would have to go somewhere. He can't just live on that roster wanting a contract extension. By the way, Williams is the QB1. A sports book out of Illinois called Illinois Bet has listed the Vikings as a plus 1,200 money line to end up with Fields, presumably via trade in 2024. Now, I want to add that's about the fourth best odds in the NFL. Fields to the Vikings, is that one absurd or quasi realistic?
I think it's quasi-realistic. I would not bet that that's the case. However, I'm honestly not too sure how much of a trade market Justin Fields will actually have if they go Caleb Williams number one overall. I mean, the Bears were recently interviewing Cliff Kingsbury for their offensive coordinator position. He spent a year at USC with Caleb Williams. So it's possible that the Bears just draft Williams, hire Cliff, excuse me, and all of a sudden Fields is on the trade market. So if there's a situation where no other team is really willing to trade for Fields, yeah, I could see him on the Vikings, but I would not sell the farm on that proposition either, Dustin.
Yeah, I don't know that any Vikings fan would say, hell yeah, let's give up the 11th pick or something. Mel Kiper seemed to float well, he did float last week that, hey, the Falcons might send the eighth pick, which I think is way too rich. Realistically, whether it's Fields to Atlanta or Fields to New England or Fields to Minnesota, what will that trade package look like in your estimation?
Do you think it's how similar is a Justin Fields trade package compared to last year, where all we talked about was like Trey Lance to
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota? Like, I think what the Dolphins traded a fourth round pick to get Trey
The
Lance,
Cowboys.
if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Have to double check that.
Yeah, it was a fourth
But
rounder.
I would think Fields deserves or would net the Bears more than a fourth round pick. If Trey Lance goes for a fourth, then I'd want at least a third for Fields if I'm Chicago. Does anyone really want to give up a third round pick for Justin Fields? Like, I understand he has upside and the Bears have kind of failed him up to this point, but a third round pick for a guy who's been in the league for 3 years now, entering a contract year. I mean, do you really want to do that? I'm honestly not too sure.
So if you're saying third rounder, Mel Kiper's saying first, the eighth overall, I bet it would be somewhere in the middle, which we'll probably find out what the verdict is. I would say maybe a second and a conditional sixth or something like that, because the guy at the end of seasons looks good. And, he always hoodwinks his own fan base and thinking, yeah, we got this guy. But the problem is for the first 11 weeks, he's just a dude who usually ranks, between 20 and 32nd per any quarterback efficiency metric.
I just don't feel comfortable giving up a second round pick plus some late round picks for a guy who still has a lot of work to be done as far as, as a passer. He has shown improvement, but like Fields is kind of like, a one read, two read quarterback. It at that price point, I'd almost prefer to say no thanks. If I want to invest a second round pick plus some change on a quarterback, I'll just trade up back into the first round and get like, Bo Nix or something.
Yeah.
Not that he's my favorite player in the draft by any means, but at least with, a rookie quarterback, you get 4 years on that deal. So
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be a tough sell for me.
Yeah, and I think anything with Knicks that got into second round for those who don't really love him like the others is then you start talking about value because that could be worth it in round two. All right, next, in my estimation, would be the most realistic on our little list would be Russell Wilson. So here's the deal. I learned this week, a clarification from my homie Yannick Eckhart in Germany, that no matter what, Justin Fields is getting his money from the Broncos. But in theory, if he signed a larger deal with another team, then that would be his guaranteed money in Denver would be offset. So that is how everyone has arrived at the conclusion that Wilson will sign for the bare minimum or something close to it, is because he's going to get more money in Denver no matter what. Therefore, some team is going to get an unbelievable bargain on Russell Wilson, whether he's the starter or the patch over guy to unnamed rookie quarterback. Do you, and wouldn't you know it, the Vikings are also linked to this portion of the rumor mill. Do you think it's realistic or absurd that Russell Wilson could be the patch over quarterback to whoever the Vikings draft in April?
It's quasi-realistic. Dakota hates this idea of signing Russell Wilson, and I'm not a huge fan of it either. But, we do know the Vikings would like to bring back Kirk in an idealistic world, but, until a contract is signed there, nothing's really certain. And who knows, maybe talks could just completely fall off between now and March, and a deal doesn't get done with Kirk. He's asking for too much, or something just breaks down, and suddenly Russell Wilson is like your next best option, right? I
Yeah.
mean, would it be depressing? Would I have to deal with like the sociopathic Subway commercials with Russell Wilson, Vikings country, let's ride? Yeah. Would I be happy about it? No. But, he's an affordable bridge quarterback. Like that's why you bring him in. And maybe Kevin O'Connell thinks he can fix him. The other name too to look out for is Baker Mayfield,
Mm-hmm.
which I'd almost prefer Baker because he had that little stint with the Rams where he looked really good in a Sean McVay system.
Mm-hmm.
And if Tampa decides to not bring Baker back, then, you know, he might actually be the better fit between Wilson and Baker. I think if I'm the Vikings, I'd rather have a younger Baker Mayfield who is a bit more of a pocket passer. He can still do some things with his legs, but that's just another name to look out for as well. But the whole Russell Wilson to Minnesota thing is quasi-realistic. I don't want it to happen though.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The one caveat that I would urge fans to remember if this comes to fruition for the Vikings is it wouldn't be like, oh, our solution is Russell Wilson for 30 million per year. This would be this guy is so cheap, it's stupid not to sign him. Well, if Cousins isn't back, then in all likelihood there may be an opportunity for some patch over quarterback. And why not a what 6-time Pro Bowl or whatever he is for $2 million because he's already getting paid by the Broncos. On the Cousins stuff, I want to point out that it's not surprising that when asked, would you like to play for Bill Belichick, that he would say, hell yeah, that guy's a Hall of Fame coach. What is surprising is usually Cousins would say something to the effect that, oh, I'm just concerned about the Vikings. Bill Belichick's great, but I'm not thinking about that. That's usually what he would say. So I think there's a little smoke there that suggests that perhaps the contract extension isn't going as planned because he's doing all these shows all of a sudden, or at least segments. What do you read into his comments about, yeah, hell yeah, I'd like to play for Belichick?
I mean, who wouldn't want to play for Bill Belichick, right? I mean, Hall of Fame coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like part of it's like, what is he supposed to say, right? Like, is he supposed to say, "Oh, he's trash"? I would never play for Bill Belichick. Like, of course not. But same time, Kirk is a Midwestern born and raised guy. He has mastered the art of passive aggressiveness. And this whole contract situation that's in limbo here, of course he's gonna go on some, NFL media show and talk about potentially playing for another team. It's all just a little ruse, a little tactic to try and re-sign with the Vikings because that's what he really wants. He
Mm-hmm.
wants another 2 to 3 years in Minnesota. He wants to retire here. I don't think he wants to go out of his way to leave Minnesota, but at the same time, it's a business. And if the Vikings aren't going to give Kirk what he wants, then, he's looking over at the Falcons, like, hey, they got Kyle Pitts, they got Johnny Smith, they got Drake London, Bijan Robinson, good defense. I mean, there's something there. And Kirk's got family in Atlanta too. So that's another component that makes, the Falcons a really attractive destination for Kirk. So we'll see how it shakes out. I know Dakota would probably just die on the spot if Kirk left, but hopefully it doesn't come to that point. Hopefully there's an agreement that can be worked out for both sides for her sake.
Yeah,
But it's a business.
there could be a situation either ongoing or around the bend where Kwesi Dafamensa has like 1 year, 30 million, take it or leave it. And then he's staring at a contractual ledger with the Falcons that says 2 years, 90 million guaranteed. And I understand that at some point, millions of dollars turn to millions of dollars, but you'd turn into a dumbass for not jumping at that contract as much as you might love the system you're in or the Minnesota in general. So I think that's kind of where whatever that dollar amount that Kwesi's fixated on, Kirk might be like, you know what, frick, I want to get a little bit more before I ride off into the sunset. All right.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like Bill Belichick's can there's no way I see him drafting like a young quarterback after like Mac Jones and everything. Like,
Nor would you
how
trust him
old
to do
is
it.
that man? Like, he does not have the time to develop a young quarterback. He's just gonna want someone to come in and know exactly what they're supposed to do and to be able to execute at a high level. And Kirk Cousins is exactly that. Like, you'll have no questions about leadership, no questions about his ability to throw the ball, assuming he's healthy. So yeah, if you're the Falcons, Kirk Cousins makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, especially in a weak NFC South as it stands, on January 19th. All right, we got two left. The next one has been circulated by Score North as a talker, Bleacher Report as a trade suggestion, and former Pro Bowler Kyle Long, who claims the Vikings don't need Justin Jefferson because they have Braylon Addison. And they do not have Braylon Addison. They have Jordan Addison. It is the notion that the Vikings either should or might trade Justin Jefferson for multiple first round picks to the Cardinals or the Texans. The Vikings leaders have said now for a year, every single one of them, that, this guy is the guy. Is it absurd or quasi realistic that the Vikings would entertain shipping Jefferson elsewhere for multiple first round picks?
Let me phrase it like this. If Kwesi even considers trading Justin Jefferson, he should be fired into the sun. Like, get him out of the building immediately if that's the case. But it's absurd. It's not going to happen in a million years. Look, Justin Jefferson is the best player in the league. I'm sorry, Patrick Mahomes, great quarterback, but Justin Jefferson's the best player in the league, in my opinion. He is also the most marketable star player in the NFL and for the Vikings. So if you're the Wilfs, Jefferson is the one guy on the team that you cannot afford to lose. He is your cash cow. Like, if the Vikings moved on from Kirk Cousins and then traded Justin Jefferson and then started a rookie quarterback week one, how the heck are you going to sell tickets? Completely unknown quarterback, your star player isn't there. TJ Hawkinson's probably not even going to play week one. Like, you have to keep Justin Jefferson, if just like from an ownership standpoint, because Justin Jefferson is essentially what Adrian Peterson was to the Vikings when Christian Ponder was our quarterback. Now, it's not as dire as it was with Ponder, but Jefferson is the one draw that is like bringing people into US Bank Stadium. And like Kwesi even said it like last offseason too, like, I would not want to be a GM here if Justin Jefferson was not here. So I don't think Jefferson's going anywhere. They're just trying to hash out a historic contract because he is a generational player, in my opinion. So I think it'll get done.
Yeah, that's why you're a weekly guest, Tyler, because I 100% agree with you. I don't even have anything to add. Aside from week one, they'd have Braylon Addison, though. Yeah, Jefferson won't be traded. If there were any tremors of disgruntlement from either party, we would have heard about them by now. And yeah, it's just a matter of whether or not it's going to be 30 million or 37 million, I think, as of right now. All right, the final thing is where worlds collide for you. You cover the Dolphins and the Vikings. And the only reason I have this one on the radar for the show is it was presented by a credible source from The Athletic. Mike Sando, who knows his stuff, said he seemed to hint that he did more than hint that Kirk Cousins could end up with the Dolphins because they're suddenly disillusioned with Tua and can't beat winning teams. And then I think as a backhanded caveat, he said, hey, then Tua to the Vikings. So do you see anything to Cousins to Miami or Tua to Minnesota, or is it all poppycock?
It's all poppycock. Look, I mean, as someone who covers the Dolphins, I like their GM literally came out and said that they want Tua here long term in Miami. Like that is their goal. I know that his playoff success has been disappointing, but at the same time, if we're being completely honest, Kirk Cousins does not have a ton of playoff wins either. And Kirk Cousins is 35, 36, coming off torn Achilles. At least Tua, he's younger and, you can optimistically hope that he'll develop into an even better player that he is. Now, personally, I'm not sure if that happens. I think Tua is what he is at this point. He's a great, accurate passer, but he's just not the most athletic guy. So there is a bit of a capped ceiling with Tua, but the same can be said with Kirk. And I would rather run it back if I'm Miami. I'd rather run it back. You know, they're in cap hell already. They're going to have to let some good players go, but Tua is not one of them. Tua, Tua and Connor Williams, their center, who's like, he's going to be the best center in the league once Kelsey retires. Like, those two aren't going anywhere. And there's a few others too that will get extended, but the Dolphins, they want to stay competitive in the AFC East. Look, I mean, Rodgers is coming back next year, so the Jets are going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Buffalo. They just won the division. They stole the division from Miami. Miami had it in their hands and they let it slip. And then the Patriots, they're going to have a ton of cap space, a brand new head coach, and probably a rookie quarterback picked at number what, three all three? Yeah. So the dynamics of this division are changing, and it's only going to get more difficult for Miami to kind of compete for a wild card or flat out win the division with how the Jets and the Patriots are trending upwards right now. So I think it's absurd. You can't get rid of Tua right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's mainly because of his age. Now, if he was 30, 31 pulling this shit where they don't beat winning teams and they just collapse, during a 2-minute drill like he did a couple times this year, I would say, yeah, like, if he's Prescott's age, you want to look elsewhere. But I think we're spoiled with the emergence of Patrick Mahomes in 2018, Josh Allen in 2019, 2020, that we expect these guys to be elite, at 23, 24 years old. And there's a chance that Tua can grow into that. And I think that the Dolphins must know this is our guy. We found him and we can develop him. He can get better. He can take the next step. And that's what players do. It's just that if they don't do it at the breakneck pace as a Mahomes or Justin Herbert or somebody, the media or, fans tend to become disillusioned. That's why I think I'm in agreement that I could see Cousins in Miami if there was no such thing as Tua, but Tua to the Vikings, I don't even think would apply because the Dolphins won't let him go. All right, you have
Yeah, and one
you have
more
a,
thing
yeah.
here too about Tua is he has that same Kirk Cousins effect where like everyone in the locker room, from all the coaches to like Tyreek Hill, all the players, they love Tua. Like people in the Vikings locker room, they love Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
People love Tua in Miami. So that's another reason too. You would kill the whole locker room if you got rid of him.
Amen. All right, sir. We'll be back, we think, if Dakota comes off the injured list, not IR, with her sore knee. We'll be talking at this time next week about conference championships around the bend that hopefully don't involve the Packers or Lions, probably will involve the Lions, and whatever Vikings things come our way. Where can we find you real quick on Twitter, sir?
You can find me on Twitter at Tyler Ireland MIN, and then also I write for the Daily Norseman as well, so you can find my stuff there. I'm gonna publish a sort of a head coaching carousel article and how those hires will potentially impact the Vikings quarterback search coming up here. So if you're interested in reading that, go over and read it when it pops out. Otherwise, it's always nice to join you on this lovely Friday, Dustin.
Hell yeah! Thanks for plugging that article. That sounds pretty sweet. So yeah, we'll talk next Friday with Dakota Kep, and we'll see you then. All right, man.
All right, later.
All right, take it easy.